Well, hello and good morning, vinyl community. It's Matt, and I'm back for another video. It's good to be back. It's been about a week or so since my last few. Um, I decided to do one today because a recent incident happened with a member of the vinyl community. Nothing bad, just I forget if it was even on my channel in the comments section or on their channel in the comments section, but um, you'd have discussions with people and you talk about things as we all do. And this person made a comment to me, and it sparked something in me that I said I need to do a video about this and get some of the other folks' take on this topic and what this person said to me. I'm not going to embarrass this person. I'm not going to say their name or what channel it was or anything like that. I'm just going to use what they said to me as the impetus for me making this video. So I've got some notes here because I wanted to remember all my thoughts on it, and then throw it out to you at the end. I'll tell you the story, what they said. And as you can see from the title, you already know it's Paul's voice. Paul McCartney's voice. His singing voice, his live singing voice, his studio voice, however you want to put it. Let's face it, over the last few years, and it's been documented, we've all had concerns about Paul's voice, about how he's doing live in concerts nowadays, how his studio voice has been over the years. So I'm going to go back a little bit and give my little background on it, my personal history on my experiences with Paul's voice. Go through some notes here, show you a couple of, I did CDs mainly today to make some of my points, and then we'll take it from there. Hopefully this video won't be too long. Okay, for me, the issue with Paul's voice, and it wasn't really a major issue, was back when this album came out, the Concert for the People of Kampuchea. I'm sure many of you have this album. It's a great album. It's an original pressing here that I got. It was during Paul, before he was arrested in Japan in January of 1980, he did a short tour of the UK in late 1979, and it all culminated with a great, all-star show for the people of Kampuchea. I mean, you had people like the Pretenders, Elvis Costello, the Rock Pile, with Robert Plant even, the Clash, Queen, the Specials, obviously Paul and Wings, the Rockestra Band, and the Who. All were part of this, and I might be missing people, but you get the idea. It was a big, giant celebration. I believe it was at the Hammersmith Odeon in London, and it was December of 1979, and this was the album that came out as a result. It was also filmed. I don't want to belabor too much on it. Let me just say that when this came out, I had some concerns with Paul's voice. I mean, I like his material on here. Basically on the album, you Got to Get You Into My Life, Every Night, Coming Up. He sings Lucille, Let It Be, and then they do the Rockestra theme. That's the side of the album that's Paul's. And I have to admit, at the time, I had some minor concerns with his voice. I thought he sounded a little rough and gruff when he was singing the songs here. Nothing bad. I loved it. I enjoyed it. But I just said, ooh, he sounds a little, maybe it was from the tour or whatever, but he sounds a little rough on the vocals. Not a big deal. Obviously, when you heard his studio albums around this time period, from Back to the Egg before this came out to his new McCartney 2 album, and then a couple of years later, Tug of War, there was obviously no major problems with Paul's voice. He probably just, this was a night after that grueling UK tour that his voice was just a little rough. And on some of the songs like Got to Get You Into My Life, and it might be Every Night a little bit, I don't remember, but he was a little bit rough. So that was the first time I ever had a thought about Paul's voice. Up until then, I never even thought about it. He's just been so perfect and outstanding with his vocals on studio and live. And the next time I had any issue or even thought about Paul's voice was 10 years later. He put out great studio albums throughout the 80s, and then in the late 80s, he went on the big 89-90 World Tour, the Paul McCartney World Tour. And I noticed when this album came out, that his voice on some of the songs, again, not bad, he could hit the notes and whatnot, but they were a little bit rough on some of the vocals. Some of his vocals here were rough, but I chalked it up to, like everyone else at the time, even the critics said, is that he was overbooking. I mean, he was doing show after show after show, night after night here. He did not get a lot of breaks, or if he got a break, he would do 3 or 4 shows, then maybe get a day and do another 3 or 4 shows on this tour. So he was really cranking it out, and I think it took a toll on his voice a little bit. Like I said, nothing bad. He was still hitting the notes and singing the rockers great and everything. But you could sense a little roughness to his voice on this album. Okay, again, I chalked it up to heavy touring and fatigue. To me, it was fatigue. After that tour, after this tour, 89-90, I thought his voice was stellar and was fantastic on the albums after that. And I didn't notice anything next until, let me fix this here, until this album, around 1997. This was the first time, and again, not a bad change, where I noticed a slight change in Paul's singing voice. Again, he's 55 years old when Flaming Pie comes out in 1997, and I just noticed a slight change. This album is one of my favorite Paul albums. Go back to my top 25 favorite Paul albums, and this is in my top 10, way up somewhere. I think it's in the top 5, if I remember correctly. I love this album, one of my favorites. But this is when I started to notice a change in Paul's voice, you know, just a slight aging change, but nothing bad. You know, obviously a couple years later when Run Devil Run came out in 1999, I noticed it a little bit. Nothing bad. Again, just, you know, he's getting older. He's an older, mature man. And I further have noticed changes throughout the years on his singing voice in albums like Driving Rain in '02. I noticed it a little bit on Chaos and Creation in the Backyard. Again, this one I kind of want to forget, but I got to say on this one, even though he's, you know, he's older here, it's 2005 now when this one comes out. He's 62 or going on 63 when he made this album, but I still love this album. One of my favorite Paul albums is Chaos, and I think he sounds great on it. 2 years later, I did notice vocal changes a little bit. Now he's a couple of years older. In 2007, this album came out, 2007, and Memory Almost Full, and but I still like this album. I think there's a lot of great songs on it, and Paul handles it superbly. Electric Arguments, again, made my top 10 or just missed my top 10 on my Paul list. Thought he put out a great album here. Again, I did notice changes in his voice. 2012, he puts out, Kisses on the Bottom. Sorry about that, folks. He puts out, I'm dropping my stuff all over. Oh, there goes all the postcards from the new album. Anyway, I'll pick them up later. Yeah, live. I don't make any edits, so you got to deal with it. Sorry. 2012, Kisses on the Bottom. Okay, Paul puts this out. I love this album. It's a nice, relaxing album, but his voice is different. You know, he's older here. It's 2012, I believe this one came out. And but I like the album. He's very serviceable, and he does a great job. And then, of course, his newest one, which came out in 2013, the new album. This is one of my favorite Paul albums. It's I believe it's way up in my top 10 or just bubbling near the top 10 of my favorite Paul albums. I love this album. I just listened to it the other day, completely through. I love it. Even the songs I never used to really care for that much have now grown on me, and I love this album. But let's face it, you know, in this album, when he recorded, he's about a 70-year-old man. 70 years old, excuse me. And I think he did a great, serviceable job. I think his voice sounds okay, fine. I don't think it's terrible at all. I'm sorry. I enjoy this album. Yes, is it different than when he recorded Band on the Run? Of course. You know, Band on the Run, he's a young man, 31 years old or whatever he was back then, 30 years old even when he was recording some of that stuff. Now he's 70 when he's recording this. So give the guy a break, right? I mean, thank God we have an album like this, and I even hear he's working on one that's going to come out in 2018, so there you go. Good luck to Paul, and wish him all the best. Okay, so now enough showing the albums and setting up some of the background. Real quick, I'll tell you the story and then be out of this video for you, so it won't be too long. So I've noticed changes in his voice up until the most recent new album, and even live. I saw him live on the 89-90 tour where he was overbooking, I think. In 93, he backed it down a little bit and was more reasonable on the New World tour in 93, and I thought his voice sounded great. I then saw him in 2002. He was fab, stellar. 2005 tour, great. He did one of the best versions of Maybe I'm Amazed I ever heard on the 2005 tour that he did for the Chaos tour. 2009, saw him at Fenway Park, great, fabulous. With my two sons, he couldn't have been better. 2011, saw him at Yankee Stadium, great. Everyone loved it. Went with my kids again. Okay, went with my best friend in 2013 back to Fenway Park. He was fabulous. My friend even commented, wow, I can't believe how good he sounded. He just sounded so great, so fantastic. And I was really happy for Paul, saying, wow, look at that. 2013 and he still can pull off a show and impress some people. That really made me feel good. But I only noticed a drop off live, and I'm going to be honest, let's face it, the last, four years or so, Paul's voice has dipped a little bit where people are now starting to notice and comment on it when he plays live. And I did notice a drop off on the 2016 series of shows when I saw him again. And then most recently, I saw him late last year in 2017 at Madison Square Garden with my youngest son. But it wasn't embarrassing. He didn't embarrass himself. Yes, his voice has dipped off. My son even commented that there were a couple of songs. I think it was maybe I'm Amazed, which I'm amazed he still tries to sing that live. And there might have been one or two others where my son said, I think it was I've Got a Feeling. My son said, oh, he was serviceable, but you could tell on those two songs he was a little shaky. And I said, yeah, but you got to admit, overall, I got to say, the show sounded fantastic, and Paul was serviceable. He didn't embarrass himself. I would say that in his live peak, if he was an A+ as a singer, he's only dropped a few notches to maybe a B. He's probably dropped to a B, but I wouldn't put him below that. I think he's a good, serviceable live singer at this point. He's either Paul of the old days. No, he's not the A+ anymore, but he's still very good, and he still puts on a great show. Very serviceable, and I hate to use that word serviceable, it sounds blah, but I give him a B. He's good. He's good. All right, but to me, I'm going to say this real quick. I want to be out of here by 15 minutes. To me, to not listen to Paul or to not buy his music because of his voice, to me is a sin. I know to use that's a harsh word, but to me it's unforgivable. To ignore this man's career, this great stellar career, great wonderful music he's put out right to 2013 with the new album due to his voice. So I'll tell you the VC story really quick to end this, and then you can give me your thoughts. So this person said to me, we were having a discussion about something, and I brought up one of the newer albums. Like, I'm not sure if it was the new album or Chaos and Creation, but one within the last 10 or 12 years. And the person said to me, it might have been the Chaos album. Well, I've only listened to that album once, and I didn't buy it, and because I didn't like Paul's voice. I said, oh, really? And they said, well, as a matter of fact, I don't own any Paul albums since the early 80s because of his voice. I just was taken aback by that. I didn't make a big discussion with the person about it. I think I just kind of let it roll off and end it. I don't like to get into these big controversies. You should listen to this. Some people like to do that. I don't like to do that. To me, we're all different. We all have our own thing. So I didn't get into a big discussion or argument with the person, and I like and respect this person. They're a great member of the VC. They've been around a while, and I enjoy their videos. So I'm not going to, begrudge this person or put them down or throw them under the bus. I'm not even going to mention who they are. I'm just going to say, what do you think of that? I can't forgive something like that. I mean, I like this person. I just mean the thought of that, to not listen to Paul or to not buy his music since the early 80s, which would be what? Tug of War or the Pipes of Peace album, and you're not buying it because his voice has changed. He's aged, he's matured, and the voice isn't as sweet as it used to be back in the 70s and 80s, so I'm not going to buy his albums anymore. I'm sorry, folks. I don't agree with that. I think that's wrong. I'm sorry. His voice is not the same on the new album as it was on Band on the Run or Venus and Mars, or even the same as it was on Flaming Pie 21 years ago. But you know what? Give the guy credit. This is a great album. You don't know what you're missing out on, people who are not buying his stuff because of his voice. This is great stuff, okay? This is a nice little album. Not one of my favorites, but it's a great album. Great album. Yeah, the voice has changed, folks, but these are great albums. This has got great stuff on it. Okay? Well, maybe not this one, but rockin' album. Flaming Pie. I mean, go back further. I mean, Flowers in the Dirt's one of my favorites. I like Off the Ground. I mean, I don't get it. I'm going to end this video. I said I want to be out by 15, and it's 14 and a half now, and I want to be out. But I'm just kind of shaking my head here, folks. I love Paul. I mean, God bless the man. He's still out there doing it for us, trying to please the fans, and you got to give him credit for that. And you know what? I'm not saying everybody has to buy everything that an artist puts out, but to tell me that you don't listen to Paul's music after the early 80s because of his voice, unforgivable. That's it, folks. What are your thoughts? I'm just shocked and shaking my head still. Take care. God bless. Bye-bye.